Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Amazy, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode. Today we're going to talk about 16 relationship lessons that I learned over the past 16 years as a former porn addict. This past weekend, I and my girl celebrated 16 years of our relationship, our anniversary. I want you to understand that I watched pornography and masturbated compulsively every single day from the age of 14 when I learned how to masturbate well into my early 20s. The emphasis is on every single day. I cannot remember a night before I had regular access to pornography where I went to bed without masturbating, which some might say is normal for a teenager. But as soon as pornography came into the picture, I cannot remember a day or a night where that went by without me viewing pornography. It warped my brain. Everywhere I looked, there was somebody that I was undressing. There was somebody I wanted to have sex with. As I grew older, if there was like a certain line, if you crossed that line in terms of attractiveness, I would immediately imagine what it was like to have sex with you. I would sit down and it doesn't matter whether a woman was serving me, whether a woman was teaching me, whether a woman was walking past me, whether a woman was the girlfriend or wife of a friend. It did not matter. I would fantasize, I would masturbate about you, I would want to have sex with you in my head. That is what pornography did to me. It messed me up. I never thought that I would get a girlfriend, let alone build a long-term relationship. Some of you may feel that way. I would see men with their partners, specifically, and let's get real, man to man, I would see men with beautiful partners, objectively attractive women, and I would long for that. When I say long for that, it means that I longed for the intimacy. I longed for the beauty. I longed for an aesthetically pleasing, loving, compassionate human being that I could connect with deeply, that I could enjoy having sex with, that I would have as a friend, that I could share things with, that I could build experiences with. That is exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to settle for anything else. I wanted to have my cake and I wanted to eat it. Why? Because I saw it was possible. At least from the outside, that's what I thought I saw. I thought I saw men with beautiful women holding their hands, giving them those lovey-dovey eyes, cuddling together. I would hang out with friends who had girlfriends and they'd be like, we gotta head home. And they would head out and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna have great sex. Like, she's so hot. That's what I thought through my early 20s and in my teen years. And here I am. I'm just a fucking loser, just jerking off and getting on Craigslist and paying cam girls and just being a fucking loser. But I've been in a relationship with a beautiful woman inside and out. I've been in a relationship with a wonderful human being for the past 16 years. And so here are 16 lessons that I've learned. And I want you to note, as always, you're probably going to disagree with some of these lessons. But let's be honest, like, who gives a fuck? I'm just a happy guy on a podcast. I'm running my mouth in the hopes that some men who are listening, who are struggling with their behavior with pornography and sex, might learn a thing or two. Not here to argue with you. But most of these lessons were learned from both of us. These are not just my lessons from a relationship. These are our lessons from a relationship. And they were learned from watching other people in relationships, other single people we knew, our individual and mutual friends, and not making the mistakes they made. In addition to that, I saw thousands of married and single clients over the years, and I saw a pattern in their relationships. It didn't matter whether they were Christian, Muslim, codependent, not codependent, sex addicted, not sex addicted, with kids, without kids, older, younger, didn't matter, same mistakes that we saw over and over again. Number one, your partner and their happiness comes before the relationship. What this means is that if you have been putting your relationship or your marriage on a pedestal, you need to take it off the damn pedestal. You are in a relationship with another human being. If that human being did not think that you would enhance their life and make it happier, if you did not think that they would enhance your life and make you happier, neither of you would be in a relationship. So why put the relationship or the marriage first? Why stay together for the sake of the relationship and what you guys built together? Why? No. The human being comes first. As long as you prioritize the other human being in a relationship first, nothing else matters. Now, there were some comments when I put it up on Facebook like 2 days ago, and there were a couple of people, as usual, who were just like, you should wife her up. You should marry her. I'd say you should marry her. The people who always say this, without fail, do not have a woman in their life. There's just some fucking random dude out there that's saying it, or they have rarely been in a relationship for as long as we have. When you've been in a relationship past about the 7-8 year mark, oh, you've learned a thing or two. You have learned a thing or two, and you will think twice before you open your mouth and you make that statement. Why? That is because after a certain number of years in a relationship, you have to actually start putting in a lot of work, and you realize, oh, it's not relationship work I am putting in. Relationship work is drudgery. It is human being work. Number two, counterintuitively, you are not responsible for your partner's happiness. Number one, I said that your partner's happiness and your partner as a human being, a person, comes before the relationship, which means that you should always be aware of their happiness. But that does not mean that you have to take on the burden of making them happy. However, bear in mind that the world is not fair. Many times, if your partner ends up unhappy, it is likely, brothers, that you as the man are going to be blamed. And all I'm telling you is be prepared and be okay with that. Think about it. Your partner is unhappy, she's sad. It may have nothing to do with you, but people around her are going to think that you did something. That's just the way society works. If you have a partner and both of you are walking around and you had run into something, let's say at home or at work, and it gave you a black eye, or you're doing, boxing or kickboxing, black eye, you walk around with your partner, nobody gives a shit what you look like. Nobody's going to look at you and go like, oh, your partner is beating you up at home. But switch the roles. Your partner walks around with a black eye with you next to her. Oh, what are people going to think first? That's just a simple example of how naturally in society the blame for a woman's unhappiness or pain goes on the man. Automatically. Don't freak out. Accept it as the way things are. It's okay. Now, I know some men might find this hard to swallow, but if you want to be in a long-term, happy relationship, you have to be outcome dependent about this. You're blamed for unhappiness. You don't give a shit. Don't get angry. Don't get sad. Don't complain that, oh my God, it's so unfair. Just accept that that's the way it is and move on with your life and be happy. Number three, don't stop doing the small things which each of you appreciate. So if you guys started off your relationship with thoughtful little notes you would leave for each other, if you would do things like during the winter, you would warm up their car for them, while they got ready for work because you were up earlier, brother, just don't stop doing those little things, okay, throughout your relationship. Maintain it. And if you can't feel it, ask yourself why. Oftentimes, it's just because we get lazy and we take things for granted. It is the little things that you stop doing that will destroy your relationship. Number four, always be willing to walk away. Again, like I said, you're going to disagree with me on some of these things and they're going to seem counterintuitive. They have worked for me and they have worked for many of my clients. Commitment doesn't mean that you have to stay in a dead relationship. You have to define your own values and standards, and your partner should know what your values and standards are. And always be willing to end the relationship if those are not being met. I and my partner have had these conversations about what our values and standards are, and we work towards them. We are both willing to walk away from the relationship. This doesn't mean that it wouldn't be hard or painful or that it wouldn't be maybe even traumatic to do, but we understand that we are willing to do that. As a result, neither of us take the other person for granted. It also raises the standard for who you could potentially be in a relationship with. You're already with one person. But brothers, how often do you see both people in a relationship being willing to walk away? Now you might be, well, how do you know both of you are willing to walk away? Let's just say over 16 years, this relationship has died a few times, which is not another point, not really very important, but I think you should know that long-term relationships are not always perfect. There are moments where the entire relationship is at risk for one reason or the other. Somebody growing faster than the other, somebody changing and having different priorities, physical changes, hormonal changes. There could be so many things, but both people have to be willing to come together and have an honest conversation about whether they want to revive it, whether it is worth it or not. Unfortunately, sometimes that is not the case. I think there's also a tiny element of luck when it comes to relationships. And I will say that I have been lucky enough to have a partner, not who said, I want to be in a relationship with you when things died, but who said, you know what? We've had a pretty cool 7 years together. It's pretty cool, and I could move on to do something else. I really could. But I want to see if this relationship will evolve and become better if we try again. And I was like, cool. I feel the same way. Let's try. Was it hard? Extremely. Was it worth it? You bet it was. Number 5, talk to each other first before seeking external opinions. So, within your relationship, before you have your mom, your friends, or your therapist in your ear, please be certain that both of you have communicated to each other, with each other, to the fullest extent possible before you go talking to other people and getting their opinions. Max it out together first, despite strong emotions. Number 6, don't put every aspect of your relationship out in public. It is nobody's business. Define your ideal relationship, then do what works best for you. Number 7, have sex. Have a lot of sex. Listen, gentlemen, if she is not orgasming, you are limiting your relationship potential. And if you are addicted to pornography, then she's not orgasming as much as she can. If you have issues with this, with sex due to your PIED, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, or other health issues, we can help you. So feel free to reach out. But define your sexual life and please ask for what you want early. I defined my sexual life based, or rather, I did not define my sexual life based on what society dictated. I defined it based on my reboot and what I knew about my sexual desires. I then communicated those needs to her, and we both found ways to get those needs met. Number 8, look good for yourself and for each other, which means dress well. Like dress up, even at home. A little spritz of cologne, even while you're wearing your lounge clothes at home, makes a difference. Sometimes wear a collared shirt at home, and this extends to your own physical body. So many men turn to pornography when their wife puts on weight. Listen, women's bodies are different from ours. So be understanding, be supportive. When your wife has a kid or your partner has a kid, she's going to look a certain way. Through different stages of her cycle, she's going to look a certain way. Sometimes she's going to hold water, sometimes she's not. But a lot of men are scared to communicate how they feel about their partner's weight. My suggestion has always remained the same. Make sure you do not look like a slob. If you want a partner who looks a certain way, brother, get your shit together and look a certain way yourself. and then gently invite her to be a part of what you are doing. Invite her for a walk, invite her for a run, invite her to the gym. Doesn't matter how many times she says no, because one day she's going to see some stuff on social media. One day she's going to make a new girlfriend who goes to the gym. One day she's going to talk to one of her girls who's just like, oh my God, my husband is super into fit girls and, he's all over me. One day a seed is going to be planted, not by you. And that will be the day that you so happen to say like, hey, you can come to the gym if you like. And she goes like, yeah, sure. And you're like, what the heck happened? You may never know what it was. But because you kept gently inviting here and there, she came with you. Listen, I love my girl, regardless of her weight. It doesn't matter. But at this point in my life, there isn't going to be much sex if she's overweight. Now, she knows this and she accepts this. So we both strive to look as good as possible for ourselves first, and then next for each other and the world last of all. Number 9, and this actually deserves its own point because I had an experience with this, or 2 experiences. Never tell a woman, especially if she's a Western woman, to her face that she's fat. I'll say it again. Never tell a Western woman to her face that she is fat. I have uttered those lines twice in my life to 2 different women, and there's not even enough space in this podcast to talk about the shit that happened to me. Some of you already know on both of these occasions, but they were pretty rough life experiences. Number 10. If you grew up with a lot of insecurity around women, if you wanted more experience and you never got that experience with women, please do not get into a relationship until you have resolved this. And if you suspect that maybe you settled, oh, my high school or my college sweetheart, you settled for an arranged marriage, you settled for the cutest girl that you ever dated, as the main criteria for this, then it's absolutely okay for you to sit down and examine your relationship. If you're not going to give your relationship 100%, because both of your heads, the one up and the one down, are somewhere else, then, you're really wasting your time. The good news is that within the Porn Reboot system, I teach something called rewiring your brain to monogamy, because it is possible to do so. Again, gentlemen, being in a relationship with all these unfulfilled desires and trying year after year to suppress them, to overcome them, to if I quit watching porn, I'll stop being attracted to other women. If I pray more and I'm more committed to my wife, I'll stop being attracted to I am sorry. This is how God made you. This is biology. This is nature. It is there. And unless you learn how to rewire your brain or you address these issues head on doesn't mean go out there and have sex with a bunch of women, by the way, but there are ways to do it even if you're in a committed relationship, which we can show you in the program. Unless you address these things, they will haunt you as long as your dick works. Number 11, have your own work, your own profession, and your own mission. Now, there's this whole thing on social media and other places where, there are people claiming to be power couples and talking about how their wife was so essential to them building their empire together and your partner works together with you. This happens. It is rarer than you actually think it is. 90% of the time, it's smoke and mirrors. If it's on camera or on social media and there's a couple that does the same thing and they work together as a power couple, it is likely a grift or a codependent relationship, or one of them is actually a narcissist who's running the show and controlling the other one. I know this because I've helped a lot of the husbands of these power couples deal with their sexually compulsive behaviors. And yes, there are exceptions. If, again, like I said, if you see it being advertised and somebody keeps talking about their partner all the time in public on social media, there is shit going down behind closed doors. So please, do your own thing. Have your own mission, your own goal, your own work. Ideally, your partner has her own thing she's doing, and both of you are supportive of each other. In my relationship, I go out and I work. I work a lot. I enjoy working. Why? Because work, as my partner understands it, as it comes from me, is an expression of my humanity. Work is not drudgery. Work is not a means to an end. Work is good. Work is important for human beings to do to improve. And if your partner, let's just take a quick aside, if your partner does not support your work, if your partner has a problem with the way you work, the hours you work, all of those things, then understand that your partner is not supporting your growth. Growth comes from many places, but growth also comes from work. If they don't support your growth and you've been working since before you met them, then they're not supporting the person that you could be in the relationship or even the person that you are. Number 12, never talk shit about your partner in public, preferably ever. Seriously, have each other's back and deal with other issues in private. No putting stuff on social media, no bitching about your partner. When you're all together outside, have each other's back. Your partner should not be putting you down. Your partner should not be saying cutesy things that are also putting you down and emasculating you. And if she does that, you need to have a conversation with her. Also, be mindful of the times that you might be doing that to your partner. Number 13, own your own stuff. What's mine is mine. What's hers is hers. Get a lawyer to sign on it. Do not, do not, do not own assets together. There is no need for it. Your partner should also have their own source of income while I'm on this number. So in our case, she makes a good income. We don't actually split anything. So I pay for all our living expenses. I pay for all our travel expenses. And she takes care of her own stuff, like her own personal care, her own insurance, all those things. So find what works for you. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that if I'm going to be with a woman for the rest of my life, I'm not splitting shit with her. I'm a grown man. I'm strong. I'm a winner. I make it. I create. I provide. That's the way I was raised. Those are my values. And I'm taking care of all of those things. Not because I'm blindly doing it, but also because she's providing me with the things that I need on the other hand. So find what works for you. I know some people see this as a sign of commitment. And what I mean is that some people get into a relationship and they're like, oh, I'm going to show my partner that I am committed to them by not signing a prenup. I'm going to show them that I really care for them by putting both our names on the house that I'm paying the mortgage on. That is not a sign of commitment. That is a sign of financial dependence. That is, if somebody says, I'm not signing a prenup with you, if somebody says, if you truly loved me, you'd put both our names on the house. No, 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 no. None of that is happening. Now, if security is an important part of your relationship, have a conversation about security. Have a conversation about, you know what, like again, speak to a lawyer about this. I am not a lawyer. Just throwing out some examples. Like, hey, let's say our prenup would stipulate that you get a certain percentage of any of the dividends of any assets that I invest in after we are married, and only based on a certain number of years of marriage. So if we are not married for this amount of time, you don't get anything. If we are married for this amount of time, then based on what you're doing, whatever it may be, again, this is all hypothetical, gentlemen, taking care of the house, you choose to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of the kids and so on and so forth, then you will get a percentage of the dividends of the assets that were invested in after we got married. Why? Because you were supporting me after we got married. You were making my life easier. You were raising the kids. I probably wouldn't be able to have the time or the resources to invest in those assets without your support as a partner on the home front. But everything before that was all on me. So it doesn't matter. You're not getting any of that stuff. That's just an example, but there are many ways to skin this cat. We actually do cover these things in our financial reboot program. In 2025, we're going to have our attorney run some workshops to discuss more about what to do when you're cohabitating together financially. But in the meantime, personally, I'm committing the fiduciary responsibility of my financial future to myself and myself alone. Nobody else is going to be responsible for my mortgage. Nobody else is going to be responsible for my assets or for my investments except me. And of course, whoever my financial advisor is, or whoever is helping manage it, but certainly not my partner. Number 15, don't set too many rules. So, one of the biggest killers of relationships is too many rules. And this is one of the things that we observed in other couples. You can talk to other women, or you telling your partner you can't talk to other men. She telling you you can't travel with your boys, you can't travel with those guys. Well, we need to travel together. You need to be home at night at a certain time. Listen, men need freedom. I'm not saying be out there every night drinking or doing anything crazy. Like, obviously, let your partner know. Don't let her worry. But don't let her set rules for you like a boy. None of this, like, if you don't do this, you're not getting any sex. Oh, that relationship is not working. And if you've been allowing that in your relationship, you're a fucking pussy. You do not have too many rules. Men need freedom. Rules will stifle you. And they're going to lead, all those rules that stifle you and box you in will lead to unhealthy outlets. Things like compulsive porn use, video games to compulsion, food, or substance use. Cut down the rules. Stop living in fear of the rules. Sometimes these rules are imposed verbally, and sometimes they're not imposed verbally. They're imposed by ways that you might be manipulated, like the silent treatment, like pouting every time you decide that you want to do something for yourself, or you're not going to spend time with her because you need to blow off steam. Listen, have conversations about this and cut the rules down. Finally, put your mission before your relationship. Your mission in life, your purpose, whatever you want to call it, comes before your relationship. Now, personally, I do not trust men who claim that their only mission and purpose is their family and their kids. Not because they're lying or because it's a bad thing, but because those men are being irresponsible. And if you're that irresponsible, I can't trust you with certain things around me. Think about it for a moment. If your only mission is your kids and your family, I want you to understand that human beings change. Your kids are going to grow up. Statistically speaking, your kids are not going to feel like they owe you anything. Your kids, all you need to do is go to any retirement home. That's all you need to do. Go to any retirement home. You will see that these people are not being visited. These people are not being seen by their kids when they're near death. These people are dying alone in the hospital, or their kids are showing up just to make sure all the paperwork is done. You cannot make one human being or a small group of human beings your only mission in life. It has to be something for you. And when I say for you, it means like, yeah, your mission might be to do something for humanity or to do something for other people. But it cannot be for your family and your kids alone. The final piece of this is that if you keep doing that and you're just like, no, I don't believe that. Like, I'm a man. My dad gave everything for our family and I'm going to do the same. Listen, you will find resentment from the people that you love the most at the end of that road. Let your children look up to you. Let your partner look up to you and see you on a greater mission than them. Doesn't mean you don't love them. Doesn't mean any of those things. My parents are a good example of this. My father had a big mission. He had a mission that was bigger than his family. My mom, her purpose was her kids entirely. She worked her entire life for her kids. She gave up everything for her kids. Her entire thought was her kids, her kids, her kids, her kids. Here's the difference. Now that we're all adults, when I look back and I think of my father, I don't see my father as somebody who was neglectful. I don't see him as somebody who didn't show me love because he had a greater mission. In fact, he was a great example for me because I watched him. I watched him work. I saw he prioritized work. I saw he prioritized mission. He talked to me about his mission. He spent little time with me, but he went off to do what was necessary. And I admired that. And I wanted that. My mother, on the other hand, sacrificed greatly for me. I would not be where I am today without my mother, mostly. And yeah, that was a slip there too. Also, without my mother's financial help in my broke years, in my late teens and early 20s, her sending me money all the time. But at the end of the day, her entire purpose today is still her children. But she's not our purpose. We love her. she will be financially taken care of for the rest of her life. But because she's not my purpose, I ain't talking to her every day. I have no need to do so. I have no need to do anything with her except spend some time with her when I have it because I have a greater purpose. The same goes for my sisters. But do we love her? Do we adore her? Absolutely. But is she able to accept that? She isn't. And I suspect that makes her unhappy. You don't have to end up like that. Have a bigger mission. The summary of all of this is I was hesitant about putting this particular episode out. I wanted to make it cleaner. I wanted to remove certain things. But ultimately, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to share it in a raw way with my biases in there. I was a guy who was addicted to pornography. I didn't know how to build intimacy. I didn't know how to connect. I didn't know how to set rules around relationships. I didn't know any of these things. I learned them the hard way. There's so much more to these 16 lessons that I'm teaching you, but here's what's important at the end of the day. In a relationship, brothers, you are two happy individuals coming together to voluntarily go through life because being together makes both of you happier. And so you choose to do this life thing together because your presence in each other's life only makes this journey that much sweeter. If you are doing the relationship thing for any other reason, that's my message for you all today. I want you to know on the side that within our Dating Reboot program, I also coach a session periodically called Rotations and Relationships. And this is for men who are specifically seeking long-term intimate relationships, which are not based on the traditional get married, buy a house, have kids, get unhappy, watch porn and get fat, stop having sex, tolerate each other, have an affair, divorce as soon as the first kid is off to college model of current relationships. So if you'd like to learn more about that and more about how to build a sustainable relationship that's filled with great sex, where both of you respect each other, that is stress-free, that does not have too many rules, where you can go off and do your own thing, she can go off and do her own thing, and both of you love each other very much, and both of you make each other happier, and this gets better year after year after year, then you might want to speak to one of our Reboot strategists and get a little bit more information about the Dating Reboot program. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.